Nerds with your host Jazz and me, Dr. Chopper.
Choppa.
Chopper, Tony Chopper. All right, listen, guys, we have a surprise episode for you today. We usually do not have Monday episodes, but we were able to catch Skeeb, our gracious guest host, who have been on all of our One Piece episode, and we've been able to get him down because he is hard to lock down on an episode. So we are on episode 6 of One Piece. So welcome back, Skeeb.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. And I hope that your listeners are enjoying the fandom of One Piece and are watching the show as well. I know that one of my friends watched the live action and they just actually started watching the anime. So they're at Skypiea right now.
Oh wow, they got there pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like once you watch the anime live action, once you watch the live action, the anime is a little easier to get into because you're already invested in the characters and you kind of already know the story, and it's just like a richer, more in-depth version of the story. I feel like doing it the opposite was a little bit more rough. Like I didn't really get into it until like maybe 38 episodes in. It took a while for me to like really get into it. I would just watch it at the gym and just be like, all right, at least it's not a waste because at least I'm getting some calories burned.
But now
but
you love it.
but now I'm obsessed. Now I'm obsessed with One Piece. It's pretty sad. I am currently in the spooky era of One Piece where they go and they fight this like bat guy and stuff like that, and they meet this Brook who is like the skeleton.
Yep,
Your
Thriller
thriller
Bark.
bark.
Yeah, Thriller Bark. That's where I am. So I'm there right now. It's a very zany arc. But I kind of like it. I kind of like it. There's a lot of funny parts to it. So
It's
it's
great. And that's the thing I also miss.
yeah, and there was a throwback to some stuff that happened when they got to the Grand Line, which I was like, "Oh wow, that's cool." So that's the one thing I like about the show. There's a lot of cool throwbacks. Things get connected, even though they're like 200 episodes ago. They'll somehow be connected to what's happening, and I feel like the live action is probably setting up a lot of things to do the same thing. What are your thoughts, Jazz Ski?
Keep go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, of course. Ichi Ura is the Goda of foreshadowing, and you're right. They did talk about how Buggy was friends with Shanks, and I'm sure they are mapping the Grand Line. So there's a lot of things that we'll eventually see in the future, and I'm excited to see where they're going to take this for all their 12 seasons they talked about.
Yeah. All right.
They're doing
Cool.
12 seasons of the live action?
That was one of the like the thing that they were saying. They're like, oh, we did so well. We might have 12 seasons in store.
The showrunner
All
said
right.
he's going to do as many seasons as they let him. So
Yes.
he is in for the long haul.
Yeah.
And with all the backstory that the anime has, he could do it. He could do 12 seasons easily.
Yeah, I believe it. Back to what you were saying, Chopper. That how Oda like foreshadows a lot of things, how he ties them in. It's so frustrating because there'll be times where I will skip like a filler arc, and later on in the show you'll be like, oh wait, this is relevant again, and it ties back into something you may have skipped. So I wouldn't even
Mm.
recommend skipping the fillers in this show just because they all tie back at some point.
Mhm.
I haven't skipped any fillers. I've watched everything, even the dumb episodes where they're in like feudal Japan, and I don't know what the hell's going on in that episode. It's like its own world. Is really weird. But I'll watch those too. I don't care. I just gotta know. So there are some episodes where they're just recaps of old episodes. It's really strange.
Oh,
Where
weird.
they,
Hmm.
I don't remember
yeah,
those.
Oh,
yeah.
they're
So
there.
yeah. It's like a lot of it took place in Annie's lobby. I believe that's when I first started seeing them, where they'll show like literally 40 seconds of like what's happening in the real time, and then the rest of the story is like a flashback, which of an episode we've already seen. So there's no new content. So they've done that a few times, but those fillers I feel like you can kind of skip, but the other fillers I feel like are important. So it's kind of hard to figure out which fillers are important, which fillers are not.
Yeah, there's like a running list online that tells you which ones you can skip, which ones you can't, based on the current story. But it's always funny seeing like when you go back to them, they're like, "Nope, this is updated. You can't skip this filler arc anymore."
Oh, that's good. At least you keep them updated. All right.
Yeah.
So speaking of updated, let's go into this episode. We are on episode 6. We left off, and Zoro, sorry, Zoro was hurt. He was hurt pretty bad, and they put some fish skin stuff on him to get him to heal. And then we kind of just dive into Sanji's past. Now, Sanji was a young chef. Uh, on a marine ship, I believe, and he gets attacked by a pirate called Red Leg Zeph. And he was called that because, he could fight really well with his legs. And somehow Sanji and him are the only two that get stranded on a island. Now, he saves Sanji, and then he has two like little, sheets or like little, I don't know, a package of food, and one is his and the other is Sanji's. And he goes, "Hey, you brat, go to the other side of the island and be a lookout, and I'll be a lookout on this side of the island. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to talk to you. Here's your share of the food and go." So young Sanji goes and he tries to ration his food. He tries to look for a ship, and days and days and weeks pass and all his food is gone and he's skinny, and then he's thinking, this fucking guy, he has more food than me. I'm gonna go and try to steal the food from him. He's like, why does he get all the food? He's a pirate. So when Sanji goes to steal the other guy's food, he realized he doesn't have any food. It was just treasure in his packet, and what he did was he cut off his own leg and ate it. Wild, wild. I did not expect that. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, when I watched it the first time in the anime, what were your thoughts of how they showed this in the live action? Do you think it lived up to it? Do you think they did a good job? Ski.
Well, I think there's differences. I think in the manga they showed him literally taking a rock and breaking his leg. I think in the
Wow.
anime they also there's a point where his leg got caught in an anchor and then he had
Yes, and an anchor.
and then I think they did this one was the one where Sanji was trying to try to kill Zeph and take his food, but then realized he had eaten his own leg, and that shows the sacrifice that he was given to him because he was like, oh, I'm already old, I've done my time. And the reason why he wanted Sanji to live, and the reason why he was very caring and very empathetic towards Sanji, which he kind of showed later but not right away, was because Sanji had said while they're having the altercation on the boat before the boat got capsized, is that he was going to find the all blue, and Zeph was like, nice. So then that kind of inspired Zeph to have his dream be passed down to Sanji, so Sanji can
Mm,
find the all blue.
Now,
that's
what's
really
interesting about this is that One Piece is all about dreams. Like, even when Zoro was fighting Mihawk and we knew it was a horrible idea, Luffy would always say, I cannot stand in the way of a man and his dreams. And you'll see the theme of dreams and the power of dreams carry on throughout the whole series. In fact,
mm.
there are several theories about that too. So, but we're not going to touch upon that in the live action coverage. We'll probably touch upon that on the anime coverage.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Then they go back and forth to the real life. Um, there is this one funny joke, and I don't know if this joke had a reference in the anime, but like apparently Sanji does not like oregano. Oregano is for savages. I didn't catch that. Is that a thing in the manga or in the anime, or is that something strictly for the live action?
Yeah, no, I'd never really seen it in the anime, and so I think that was just a running joke for the live action, because that was also something that they had argued about when Sanji was a little kid.
Yeah.
Steph was just coming in, he was like tasting the food, he was like, "This should have more oregano," and he pours oregano in, and that's when Sanji tries to attack him.
I love that. That's really, really funny. All right. And then we go back to the real world, and while Zoro is passed out, Nami decides to read to him, and she reads him a book called The Mont Blanc Nolan, which is an entire storyline in the anime. And I don't know if this is just like a little Easter egg for us, or a little, something to come a little bit later. I don't know if they're gonna do that arc. I feel like they have to do that arc in order to get to Skypiea. But I thought it was really cool how they made a little reference to it. What were your thoughts about that, Skeeb?
Yeah, once again, they have so much source material that they could go back on. They have so much they could talk about, and I'm really happy that they kind of introduced this a little early on.
Hmm.
Um, and so, Nolan the Black is one of my favorite storylines because it kind of also is tied to what it happens now in the actual anime series. It's kind of all related, and so it's cool that they have that little Easter egg there. And another
Yeah.
Easter egg that we can point out is that in the picture of the book, they have Panda Man. So Panda Man is one of those references that Ichiura also has in his manga. It's not a real character. It's just one side character in the background that's like in almost every single piece of his artwork.
Oh, that's what that. It's kind of like in Adam Sandler. There's the guy who goes, "You can do it," like as one of those. Okay, because I've seen Panda Man in certain scenes, and I never understood who he was or why he was there. He just shows up in some
Mhm.
of the filler episodes, so I do recognize that. I think he was also in the Foxy arc,
Yes,
which I might have seen him,
yep.
which is cool. So back to the what you call live action. While Nami is reading to Zoro while he's passed out and recovering, somebody shows up, and that's Arlong. Now, Arlong is a fishman. Can you explain to people what a fishman is?
Yes. So in the One Piece world, there's different races. So you have the human race, and for example, you have the fishman race. Now, the fishmen are basically different types of fish related. They're a fusion of like fish and human. So they have all the powers of a fish. Uh, sorry, one second. So let me just give you the quick rundown. So basically, what it is that the fishmen are a race, and in this One Piece world, there's different races, and they're just one race that lives in this sorry, they both basically can live in the ocean, but also be on land.
Yeah. So what we don't learn this now, but we learn that there is, some discrimination, and we'll get into that in the later episodes. But in this point, Arlong says that he is superior. Fishmen are superior to humans. They are the evolution of humans, kind of like how in the X-Men the mutants are the evolution of humans. So he thinks he's superior. He thinks they're better. I kind of like this storyline because they made it a lot more complicated and a lot more I don't know. I would say like we almost identify with Arlong, but not in this episode. We find that out a little bit later, which is really cool. Uh, but he has all of these powers. And the other thing is Nami has some history with him, which is pretty interesting. Which I thought was pretty good. She belongs to the Arlong Pirates, and I thought that was cool the way they showed that. What were your thoughts on that, Ski?
Yeah, in the anime, as you know, the Nami always had allegiance to the Arlong Pirates, and also in the live action, she always kept saying, "We're not a crew. We're not a crew," and
Yeah,
now you can see why. And that's where we kind of go back. Nami leaves this crew because she's part of Arlong's crew, and
right.
has that relationship with them. What the relationship is we don't know yet, but she is part of Arlong's crew. Was she a spy? Was she like doing this just to leave, have her own thing to do, just kill some time? Or was she always going to betray the Straw Hats? We don't know. But in the anime, what she actually does is she steals the Going Merry, and she goes to her island, and now that leaves Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, and Luffy stranded. But this is a little bit more different. This one, she kind of saves Luffy. Like Luffy and Arlong get into an altercation. They fight outside, and Arlong is about to bite him, but then Nami steps in and stops it. And then Arlong's like, "Okay, let me just throw him in the water, let the ocean take you," knowing that he also has the devil fruit, and Luffy will sink. And Nami kind of saves Luffy in that moment.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard to kind of understand whether Nami is helping him or not because she's, acting like she's part of the pirates. Um, and then in this time, Zoro wakes up and he is better. And then they decide to go after Nami and help her because they don't know at this moment if she is really betraying them or not. Um, and then Sanji decides, hey, I think I may join the pirates also, because Luffy made this whole thing about him following his dreams, and it kind of got to him. And then I think at some point, Zeph also believed that Sanji should go and follow his dreams. And I think one part is where you see Luffy talking to Zeph. He goes, somebody came in here and they were starving, and Sanji fed him. And then Zeph goes, he's a good boy. So like there is some kind of like love relationship between him and Zeph, even though they don't show it and they're always fighting and they're angry. Um, and then him and Zeph have a little bit of an exchange, but he decides to leave. And I feel like you guys have a lot of opinions on that. So you guys want to go into that?
Well, let's just finish off the scene of how Sanji leaves, right?
Okay,
And then we can dive into our opinion about it.
sure.
Yeah. So Sanji, he boards the ship and he has this whole little soliloquy thanking Zeph for everything. And they go about their way, right? That's the way it felt to me.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why it felt this way to me is because in the anime it was way more impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that little heart to heart was kind of cool. That like you see a bit more of it, actually spoken out loud. In the anime, it's a bit more implied.
Mm-hmm.
And in the anime, how it works is that you know Zeph and all the crew of the Baratier, uh, they're all like, "All right, bye, bro. Take care, whatever." And Sanji's like, "Yeah, I'm leaving. Peace out. All you suck." And then in the most pivotal moments, Zeph just says to Sanji, "Hey, Sanji, don't catch a cold." And at that moment, Sanji just breaks down, just thanking Zeph for everything. He's bowing his head. He's like, "I owe you my life. I just all these things." And then even the crew burst out in tears because they're like, "Nah, we love you, man. It's so sad to see you go." But the anime didn't have that hit for me, or sorry, the live
The
action
live
didn't have that
action,
hit for
yeah.
me. Yeah, like in the anime, it was so much better, and I wish they could have replicated that because it wasn't even that hard to do, but it just didn't hit the same, and I'm sad about that.
Mm. What about you, Ski? What are your thoughts?
I completely agree with what Jazz is saying. You're right. The line that Zeph says in the anime, he's like, "Don't catch a cold," as Sanji's walking away, and it kind of brings an emotional tear to Sanji. And from that moment, he gets really remorse, and he thanks Zeph for everything that he's done. And when the Japanese culture, what they do is they bow their head. But Sanji got down into like a sujood. He got down and put his head on the ground and thanked owner Zeph. He was like, "Oh no, Zeph." And then I just felt like it didn't really translate really well. Skylar was just like, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hated you, but thank you so much. You take care." And I was like, "No, it wasn't the same."
Mm. Okay, fair. I didn't have that much emotional attachment to the scene in the anime. So for me, I felt like it was a little rushed, but I didn't miss the emotional impact. But I could see what you guys where you guys are
Did you
coming from.
not cry when Sanji also like in the anime just bows his head and just screams out everything?
I still wasn't into it by the time they got to the Brati. I still wasn't super into the anime at that point. Like it
Rewatch
was
it.
Yeah, if I rewatch it, I think I agree. I think like now that I'm invested in these characters, if I go back and rewatch it, I will probably have a different reaction. But like, I didn't like Usopp. I didn't care for Sanji, and all of that changes as like these characters get more character arcs and you learn more about them, right? So Zoro was probably the only one that I just loved from the start. I was like, that guy is just awesome. So like Nami is
Oh,
another one I hated. I hate Nami so much in all of these like early episodes in the anime.
Yeah.
wait till the end of Thriller Bark because you're gonna love Zoro even more, man.
All right. So that's really cool.
Just kidding.
So
Nothing happens.
yeah. Stop spoiling things for me. All right, listen. Um, so after the Sanji and Zeph exchange, We find out Buggy the pirate is the one who gave Arlong all this information. And the reason Buggy the pirate is able to do all this stuff is because he left his ear in like somewhere in like one of their hats or something, or in their
Yeah, the
bags.
straw hat and the little red band. It was in there.
Yeah. And damn, yo, Buggy's mad smart. And this doesn't happen in the anime. Buggy's gone. So they kind of found a way to add Buggy and keep him in the live action in a couple of more episodes, which I like because I think he was a fan favorite. Even though I know you guys didn't like him, the internet has really liked him. So he is a little bit of a fan favorite on the internet. So I think it was a good move to make Buggy more integral to this part. But I do feel like he starts off so menacing and he just becomes more silly as this as the episodes go on. What were your thoughts about Buggy?
So at this scene is actually where I really began to like the live action Buggy.
Okay.
It was like, oh, that is so cool and that is so smart. He put his ear in and he could hear it from wherever in the world with it.
Yeah.
And like it was just a really cool concept of how they did that. In fact, this is one of the things I actually like better about the live action than the anime because this felt more real. It felt like it's something that's plausible in a world of like, fantasy and all this. But like just separating an ear and like using it as a satellite microphone, yeah. Like that's just so cool and so smart. So I actually really like this scene specifically of Buggy and the way they did this.
Nice. Skeeb, what about you?
Yeah, same. I think Buggy kept more relevance in this portion of the anime, and I'm glad that they had him here because then you get a little bit more face to face time with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty cool.
Okay. And then at the end, we do get to see that Nami has indeed ran away with the Arlong pirates, and she is part of their crew. And we find out, Arlong gives a speech about how he's so superior. And then the episode kind of just ends. And I think in the next one is where we find out um, all of the backstory about the Arlong pirates and Nami's backstory, which is, in my opinion, one of the best parts of the show, which is really cool. But overall, what did you think of this episode with the Baratier and I think the focus on Sanji?
So, this episode was great. Particularly the line that Arlong did, where he was like, "Oh, you think of us as fishermen as second-class citizens, make us do all your manual labor just because we look different." And I'm like, "Oh goddamn, he's speaking some facts here."
He even called out the maitre d who was a fishman. He was like, "Don't you feel like you're waiting on these humans, and you're better than that? You're a fishman. You shouldn't be doing this." I thought that
Right?
was
Like
too.
it was such a good line because like it's so relevant to a lot of what's happened in our world. So they definitely brought the heat with this, and to end it off with the way Nami betrayed them, you know, in the anime, yes, I thought Nami was annoying. I thought she was just there just as a female character, but now there's more nuance to her, and I actually kind of like the way they did this. Like it was different. It wasn't like I'm not gonna rave about it, but it was really good regardless.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
And
Nami. Go ahead, Ski.
and including the maitre d in the earlier scenes kind of gives you the idea of, oh, there's like a fishman here and they're kind of part of the society, which you
Mhm.
do you kind of see them in different like stalls and shops, and they have their own, they live amongst the humans, but you're right, there still has this notion and this idea that they're lesser human beings.
Mm. Yeah, very true. Very true. Uh, and we'll talk about a little bit of the social overlap of that in the real world compared to the Fishman world. I think that's really cool. And I feel like the fact that they casted a black man to play Arlong goes a long way because it makes that like it just hits different. The way he talks, the way he
Mm-hmm.
speaks, and the way he says these things, you're kind of watching and you're like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. And then you're like, I get it. I get it. So it's really, really cool. I definitely think that they put some thought into that. And I think that's really, really cool.
I did
Um,
mention this earlier too, where the fishmen are actually like 2 to 3 times taller than the humans. They're built differently. They're much stronger, and they have the ability to like kind of manipulate water by using like different fighting techniques and splash water different ways, like bullets. So
yeah.
in the live action, they kind of like dulled it down a bit. They made it more humanistic, like human size, but still a little bit strong. But I wish they kind of immaculated the how gigantic fishmen are.
So I kind of disagree with you there because even though I would have loved to see them more of like gigantic, I'm glad they went with like prosthetics and real life stuff rather than CGI. I feel like you could CGI a giant fishman really easily, but the fact that they went with like, practical effects, I feel like practical effects just like they last longer. Like you can watch a movie like Star Wars or Gremlins and the practical effects still last, but like you watch a movie with like CGI and like Jar Jar Banks just does not look good. Like it's like one of those things. So I'm a big fan of practical effects, and I can deal with losing the size if they keep the practical effects. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, no, I agree with
I buy that.
prosthetics.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Skeeb. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with the prosthetics. I think they did an amazing job with setting those up and make them really look like fishmen. But in the anime, you get a lot of size comparable things. So, and that's kind of where it brings like the intimidation, it brings like society. So let's see what the live action does with that.
Yeah. I am a big fan of this arc. This was the part, like the next two episodes are the ones in the anime that really sold me. Like I was all in on the anime after these two arc when we get to the village where Nami is from. I think that's really,
Go,
really the
go
turning point.
something.
Yep. Told you. Episode 44, man. In the anime, just get through episode 44, you'll fall in love.
Yeah. Is it episode 4? I thought it was a lot earlier, but yes.
It's 44, man.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love this episode. I think it was really good, but the thing I like about this episode 6, is the way it sets up everything for Nami. Like we saw it coming when she was playing the drinking game with Zoro, and now we see it like being fulfilled. She was going to leave them earlier, but she decided to come back when he was fighting Mihawk. So Nami is this like conflicted character, and I really, really like the way they show that. Anything else you guys want to say about this episode before we go? I think that's all I have about this episode.
So the ending, we also see one more scene with Garp and Mihawk, where Garp is like, "Why'd you let him go?" And Mihawk's like, "I just want to see what happens. He's funny," and like,
Mihawk did for the lulls.
Yeah, right. He literally did, and it's kind of goofy. You know, in the anime, he's way more serious, but here I'm just like, all right, I kind of dig it. Like he's not as serious. It kind of works for him, and it's in line with what actually happened because like. Oh shoot! I can't say this yet. You're not there yet, Needs.
Okay.
You know, up ahead, it'll be something similar. You'll see it. And so, right, this is just in line with Mihawk's character about how much he actually likes Luffy. It's just really funny. It's really great. And when Garp was angry about it, then he's like, you know what? You're right. He's my grandson. But he's a pirate. And then he goes actually like full force Garp on him, and that's when the gloves would really come off. I thought that was actually a really cool way of showing that as well. It's not, you know, one for one with the anime, but you know what? It's cool. I like it.
Nice. Skeeb, what about you? What are your final thoughts about this episode?
I loved the backstory with Sanji and Zeph. I think they did an amazing job replicating what it was in the anime, and you saw it firsthand. And I think they did a really good job. And I love the fact that they did this. And I'm really excited to see what the other backstories about the characters that they're going to develop later on. We also didn't talk about how Luffy would speak to Zoro while he was injured and resting. Luffy was there to also encourage him. He was like trying to get Zoro his favorite food and being reminiscent about Zoro and really encouraging him to come back. And then eventually he was like, "Yo, Nami left," and I think that's the part where like Zoro was like, "Okay, let's go get her too as well."
Yeah, no, I really like that. The other thing we didn't mention, I really like the acting of the young Sanji. I thought that kid did a great job. I thought he really, really, he really pulled it out there. I thought it was fantastic. Big fan of this episode, but I think the next two episodes are really what, hit it for you guys, for all the people who are watching the live action. But that's all I got for this episode, man. Thank you for joining us, Skeeb. I know you got to go soon, so I want to make sure you can catch your flight soon. But that's all we got. And until next time, guys, Salaam, nerds.